All right, so in this section we're going to be talking about dimensional analysis, and dimensional analysis is basically just converting between units. So if I wanted to know how many miles it is for 1.3 kilometers, so somebody ran 1.3 kilometers and they think it's super impressive, so how many miles is that? We use it a lot. We use it in stoichiometry. We look at chemical reactions, so how do we go from one substance to a different substance, and it's something that we use a lot in this class. So you really need to know it and be very proficient with it. So before we talk about that, let's talk about the metric system really quick. Now the metric system has a base unit, so like meters, grams, liters. And those are the most basic ones. And then it has prefixes. So you have kilo, hecta, deca, deci, centi, milli, and some others, which are down here. And basically it tells you how many times greater it is versus the base. It's just something that we use in every science. It's universal for science. For some reason America has, or the US still has not caught on because pretty much every other country uses it. But anyway, if you have a prefix, it tells you how many times greater. So a kilo would be 1,000 times greater than the base unit. Milli is 1,000 times less than the base unit. So really, if you just know the saying, that'll help you. So King Henry died drinking chocolate milk. So kilo, hecta, deca, whatever the base unit is, deci, centi, milli. And you can figure out how many millimeters are in a meter or how many kilometers are in a meter. Vice versa, if you just know the saying, King Henry died drinking chocolate milk. And basically the way I look at it is, okay, so if I want to know how many hectometers is equal to how many meters, well, what I do is I'm going to count how many spaces they are away from each other. So for hectometers versus meters, what I do is I say, okay, which one is bigger? So which one is more towards the left? Left is larger. Okay, so if it's to the left, it's larger. So that means that one of that larger unit is equal to several of that smaller unit. So then at that point, you just count how many spaces away is that prefix from that other unit. So 1, 2. It's 2 spaces, which means it would be 2 zeros. So 1 hectometer is equal to 100 meters. And this works with every unit in this little saying right here. So if I have decimeters, so the first D is deca, the second D is deci. If I have decimeters and I want to know how many kilometers is equal to how many decimeters, I do the same thing. I have kilometers and I have decimeters. And then the deca is actually dk, by the way. Okay, so which one would be larger? Kilometer, because it's more towards the left. So 1 kilometer is equal to lots of decimeters. So now count. How many times is it between the kilo and the deci? So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 spaces, that means 4 zeros. Okay? This is just something useful to know. All right, so and really and truly, millimeters is the one that we use the most, sometimes kilograms. Oh, and centi. So those are the main ones that we use in this class. Now, these are other prefixes that you just kind of have to memorize. Giga, 1 giga meter, or gigagram, whatever, is equal to 10 to the 9th meters, or grams, whatever the base unit is. So if you have a megameter, 1 megameter is equal, and that should be lowercase m here, 10 to the 6 meters. All right, so a micrometer would be equal to 10 to the negative 6. So that would be, and then if you wanted to, you could expand these numbers out, but honestly, if you could just plug it in the calculator like this. 1 micrometer is equal to 10 to the negative 6 meters. So a micrometer is very, very small. So just make sure you know those. All right, so let's look at what dimensional analysis is. So dimensional analysis is a way that we use conversion factors to go between units. And a conversion factor is just the relationship between two units. So I can have $1 is equal to 4 quarters. That is a conversion factor. How many of this is equal to how many of those? So with dimensional analysis, you can write a conversion factor two ways. You can write $1 over 4 quarters. So you can write it as a fraction basically. Or you can write it as 4 quarters over $1. Here is how you cannot write a conversion factor. You cannot say $4 over 1 quarter because the top has to equal the bottom. And $4 does not equal a quarter in any world. Okay? So you have to make sure the top is equal to the bottom. And that's how you know where the numbers go. So it can be $1 over 4 quarters, or it can be 4 quarters over $1. Not this way. You cannot have $4 and 1 quarter because they have to be equal. Now, basically, dimensional analysis is just a way to take conversion factors and set it up so that the units cancel. Ultimately, you're going from one unit to another unit. You want the unit that you have started with to cancel. So that's the whole goal of dimensional analysis. So let's look at an example of that really quick. So I want to convert 9 inches into centimeters. Okay, and it tells me 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. There are some conversion factors you will have to know in here, but this isn't one of them. Okay, so if I want to go from 9 inches into centimeters, so I'm starting with inches, and I want to go to centimeters. The question I need to say is, do I know how many inches are in a centimeter or vice versa? I do. I have a conversion factor. I have a direct conversion factor between inches and centimeters. So this problem is just one step. So I'm going to start with 9 inches. And by the way, you will never ever start with a conversion factor. You are going to start with whatever measurement they give you in the problem or whatever it is that you're measuring in the lab. Alright, so the whole point of this is so that the units cancel. You want to go to centimeters. So we set it up as a fraction. So you were starting with inches. In order to get inches to cancel here, the inches needs to be at the bottom. It's just like if I had 3 times 1 over 3. If I do the math here, the 3's will end up canceling and I'm left with 1. So it's the same thing for units. Alright, so the inches need to come to the bottom so I can cancel it out, and the centimeters will come to the top. The unit that you want goes on the top, the unit that you have comes to the bottom. That's so you can cancel it out. Unit that you want on the top, unit that you have on the bottom. Alright, so now it says that 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. So 1 inch, 1 has to go with the inch, is equal to 2.54 centimeters. The top has to equal the bottom. So what you cannot have here is 2.54 inches and 1 centimeter. You need to make sure the top is equal to the bottom. Since this many centimeters is equal to this many inches, the 1 goes with the inch, this goes with the centimeters. Okay, now numbers on the top get multiplied, numbers on the bottom get divided. So what you do is you're going to take all the numbers on the top, multiply them together. So 9 times 2.54 equals 22.86 divided by 1. So take all the top numbers, take all the top numbers, multiply those together, take all the bottom numbers, multiply those together, and then divide at the end. And then you're left with centimeters. Do not forget units ever. You'll get points taken off for that. Okay? So always make sure you're writing units. Do not leave naked numbers out. Alright, so remember, unit that you want goes on the top, unit that you have goes to the bottom. And then numbers on the top get multiplied. Multiply the bottom numbers, so if it was 1 times 1, and then divide at the end. Alright, so let's do another one. so using these conversion factors, make the following conversions. Okay, so we want to go from 3 meters to miles. Okay, so we're starting with meters here. I want to go to miles. And it gives me a bunch of information. Okay, so I need to see, is there a conversion factor between meters and miles? And I do not have a direct conversion factor. So I need to look for a conversion factor between either miles or meters, so it's fine. I have one between meters and yards. So really, what I'm going to need to do is go from meters into yards. Okay, so now I'm looking at yards here, and then that tells me how many yards are in a mile. So this one, 1760 yards is equal to 1 mile, will get me to miles. So I'm going to have to do 2 steps in this problem. So if you do this part first, where you draw a map, those are the units that go on the top. So I'm starting with meters. I'm looking for a conversion factor between meters and miles. I don't have one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a conversion factor with the unit I'm starting with, and I have meters right here and yards. So I'm going to have to go to yards, and then at that point I can go to miles because I have a second conversion factor here. Alright, so I have 30 meters. I'm going to go to yards first. So I'm following my map. So meters on top, now yards will be on top. So meters will have to come to the bottom so I can cancel it out. Now I'm going to put the numbers in. So I have 1.094 yards, and that's equal to 1 meter. Alright, so now my meters cancel. The top is equal to the bottom. I can move to the next step. Alright, so I'm following my map. Meters, yards, miles. Oops. Okay, following my map, meters, yards, miles. We'll go on to the next part. Alright, so now the unit that I have will come to the bottom. So basically, as you're moving along, you'll see that this comes to the bottom, and this comes to the bottom. Alright, so now miles and yards. Well, 1 mile is equal to 1760 yards. So now that will cancel, and now I just do the math. Alright, so 30 times 1.094 times 1 would give me 32.82. 1 times 1760 would give me this. So now divide at the end. So take all your top numbers, multiply them together, take all your bottom numbers, multiply them together, and then divide at the end. So you should get 0.0186 miles. Do not forget the units. Alright, so what I advise you do is you pause the video now, try a couple on your own. If you're proficient with it, then really do you need to listen to me, tell you how to do it. So I would do a few on your own, check them, and then if you're good, move on. Alright, so let's look at the next one. Okay, so the next one is go from 15 yards to miles. Alright, so I'm going from yards, and I want to go to miles. Let's look for a conversion factor between yards and miles. It says, oh, this many yards is equal to this many miles. Okay, so it's one step. Alright, so 1,500 yards is what I'm starting with. Set it up. Unit that I want goes on the top. Unit that I have comes to the bottom. And it says 1 mile, so the 1 goes with the mile, is equal to this many yards. So 1760 goes with the yards. 1,500 times 1 divided by 1760 should give me 0.85 roughly. And then that's miles. Alright, let's do another one. Alright, let's do 206 miles to centimeters. Alright, so we are going from miles and nuts. Okay, we are going from miles to centimeters. All right, so let's look for a conversion factor between miles and centimeters. I don't have one, but I do have a conversion factor between miles and yards. All right, so a good step would be to go to yards. All right, and then if I look up here, I have another conversion factor between yards, and it would take me to meters. So let's go ahead and convert it to meters. And then at this point, I have a metric unit and another metric unit, so I can always do a conversion between those. Okay, so I have the conversion factor between this and this for miles and yards. I have it for yards and meters. Let's look at what meters and centimeters would be. Okay, so I'm going between the base unit and the centi, so meters is equal to how many centimeters? All right, so which one is bigger? Meters would be bigger because it's more on the left, so 1 meter is equal to 2 places away, so 2 zeros, 100 centimeters. All right, so let's go ahead and do the math. Let's set it up. We have 206 miles. And since I've already set up my map, I know it goes on top. Yards will go on top first. Miles will come to the bottom. All right, so 1 mile is equal to 1760 yards. Cancels. All right, so now let's go to the next step. I'm following my map. Miles is done, yards is done. So meters would be next, it's on top. And then yards would come to the bottom. Well, let's look up, it's 1 meter is equal to 1.094 yards. That cancels. Let's go to the next step. Following my map, centimeters on top, meters needs to come to the bottom, and 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. All right, so now do the math. Multiply all the top numbers. I get a large number, 3, 6, 2, 5, 6, 0, 0, 0. Multiply the bottom number, so 1 times this times 1 would be 1.094. Divide at the end. You probably will get a number in scientific notation. 3.3 times 10 to the 7th, and then we're left with centimeters. All right. Okay, so let's do one more. All right, 34 grams to pounds. All right, so we are going to go between grams and pounds. So starting with grams, I want to know how many pounds. Okay, so I'm going to look for conversion factor between grams and pounds. There isn't one. In fact, grams is not on here at all. Well, I do have something with a gram in it, a kilogram. So I'm going to have to go between grams and kilograms, and then at grams, once I have the kilograms, I can go to pounds. All right, so 1,000 grams is equal to 1 kilogram. So let's start with our 34 grams. All right, I have my map. Kilograms will come to the top first. Units that you want go on the top. Grams on the bottom. So 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams. Grams cancel. Go to the next step. Following my map, pounds would be next. And then kilograms on the bottom. All right, and then it says that 1 kilogram is equal to 2.2 pounds. All right, so now multiply the top numbers. 34 times 1 times this would give me 74 roughly. Actually, about 75. 1,000 times 1 give me 1,000. Then divide at the end, and you should get 0.075-ish. And I'm going to teach you guys how to round too, but not right now. All right, so you should get 0.075 pounds. All right, so this is basic dimensional analysis. We will get into more difficult dimensional analysis, but I'm going to end it right there.